Hi, everyone.
Greetings. We are on page 130 of the Pure Worship book. What's our subhead this time?
They will become one in my hand.
Well, we don't have to read the paragraphs. What they're doing in the paragraphs is basically rehashing the data about the exile, and the return from the exile is somehow transitioning, of course, to the modern application, which is about them becoming one nation, not about Israel ultimately becoming one nation.
Yeah.
But we do want to see what their bottom line is. What's their takeaway at the end of the paragraphs?
The end of the very last paragraph in this section is, the heartening message conveyed by these two prophecies is, death can be reversed, and so can division.
So, of course, the two prophecies, if you read the whole chapter 37, which we read a good portion of last time, is the two sticks being reunited. And the original type, they do get it right here, is Judah and Israel, the 10 tribes reunited with the 2 tribes.
Yeah.
Fine so far, but not so quick to get to the point you want to make. We've got to stop here. We've got to pause here seriously before you get to the anti-type, as it were, because you're doing the same thing with Jeremiah in these paragraphs that you did with Ezekiel, and continue to do with Ezekiel. That is, you're taking select verses, 1 or 2 here and a handful or a paragraph here, select verses from Ezekiel 37 to make your point about this somehow being a type of something that's going to happen among your people today.
And then citing some from Jeremiah.
Yeah, they cite examples here. I think it's a total of about a dozen verses scattered over 3 chapters. Jeremiah 30, 31.
Yeah, and 33.
And 33. Missing out most of what's in those
the context.
Pretty lengthy chapters.
Yeah.
So we would like everybody here to just read straight through Jeremiah 30 through 33 and see what picture forms in your mind when you read those chapters in their entirety. Yeah. And it's not the picture they want to present here.
And it's always good to look at what do they cite and what don't they.
Yeah.
Within those chapters.
So read those 4 chapters, 30 through 33 in Jeremiah. We're just going to do a sample here, just to show you what they cite and what they leave out in, for instance, Jeremiah 30. They cite
1 to 3.
Jeremiah 30, 1 to 3. Okay, well, let's read those from the New World Translation. And we'll also read down to verse 11 to give you an idea of what kind of data they're leaving out.
The word that came to Jeremiah from Jehovah, saying, this is what Jehovah, the God of Israel, says. Write in a book all the words that I speak to you. For look, the days are coming, declares Jehovah, when I will gather the captives of my people, Israel and Judah, says Jehovah, and I will bring them back to the land that I gave to their forefathers, and they will possess it once again. Those are the 3 first verses. Even the third one, kind of.
The land that he gave to their forefathers. So it's about land.
Yeah. And it's a connection with them, their forefathers. These are the words that Jehovah spoke to Israel and Judah. This is what Jehovah says. We have heard the sounds of trembling. There is terror and no peace. Ask, please, whether a man can give birth. Why then do I see every strong man with his hands on his stomach, like a woman giving birth? Why has every face turned pale? Alas, for that day is a terrible one. There is none like it, a time of distress for Jacob, but he will be saved out of it. And in that day, declares Jehovah of armies, I will break the yoke from off your necks, and your straps I will tear in 2, and no more will strangers make him their slave. They will serve Jehovah their God, and David their king, whom I will raise up for them. And you, my servant Jacob, do not be afraid, declares Jehovah. Do not be terrified, O Israel. For I will save you from far away, and your offspring from the land of their captivity. Jacob will return and be calm and undisturbed, with no one to make them afraid. For I am with you, declares Jehovah, to save you. But I will make an extermination among all the nations to which I scattered you. However, you I will not exterminate. I will discipline you to the proper degree, and I will by no means leave you unpunished. That's to verse 11.
Do we understand what's been omitted here? As you pointed out, even in verse 3, even in the New World Translation, there's a link made to promises made to the fathers about the land. Obviously, that has no application to Jehovah's Witnesses today. But just in case you think we're picking on Jehovah's Witnesses, there are millions of Christians who also believe what you believe, in other words, in replacement theology. They also believe that none of this is going to be fulfilled literally. And then there's the entire unbelieving world, including the entire religion of Islam, for instance, of 1.4 billion people, who also believe none of this will be fulfilled literally to Israel. Yet, what could be more plain than verse 11? I am with you to save you, Jacob, he keeps talking to, declares Yahweh. I will make a full end, an extermination, yours says, of all the nations among whom I scattered you. Who could he be talking to here except literal Israel? When were Jehovah's Witnesses, or for that matter the Christian church, if you're a believer, but not a believer in the restoration of Israel, when was the Christian church scattered, disciplined throughout the world as a just punishment from their God, and then restored again? That's the promise that is obviously embedded in this. And then there's the rest of the JW scenario. They're key words, actually. Great Tribulation. Verse 7 is the verse on the Great Tribulation. Commentaries make the point that this is the source verse. The day is great, alas. There's none like it. It's a time of distress for Jacob. Notice the use of the word Jacob here, not Israel. But he will be saved out of it, is the promise. This is certainly not the Great Tribulation of the first century, the destruction of Jerusalem in 70. He will be saved out of it, and the nations were not exterminated at that. In fact, the nations triumphed, and Israel went on suffering, scattered, most of them throughout the world, for the best part of 2 millennia. And here we are now with a situation where Israel is in the eye of the hurricane. All it's all predicted in Scripture. Part of it right here, you've got a woman in labor. Remember that allusion of Jesus in Matthew 24? The labor pangs that he associates with the Great Tribulation. Remember Revelation 12, you've got a woman seen in heaven who is in labor. And then you've got the Great Tribulation in verse 7. You've got the diaspora, which will end in verse 10. You've got foreigners' oppression ending, so you've got the end of the Gentile times in verse 8. And then you've got the Armageddon scenario, a full end or extermination of all the nations, but not of them. So the Great Tribulation and Armageddon, even if you just had this one text, you would see what those things, those two situations, as you call them, are about.
He says, I will make an extermination among all the nations of which I scattered you. But I will not exterminate you.
But for those who say, well, it can't be because Israel's just not a nice people.
But I will by no means leave you unpunished. I will discipline you to the proper degree. Nobody, I think it's a kind of a non-statement to say they're not nice enough people. Because who is? That would disqualify all of us.
It would. But I get the point, namely that, well, why would God save them? Because they're not even Christians. Well, yeah, but the prophecies also say they will become Christians. That's
His
the
Spirit
discipline.
will be poured on them as well.
That's a national promise.
So they have the same need we have for God to intervene and pour His Spirit on us.
Now, if you just read Romans 3 and Romans 9, you see that there Paul lays out for the Romans congregation, who he hasn't yet met, most of them, who are already into replacement theology, apparently in the first century. He lays out for them that, no, Israel has national promises that none of us have. Not even Christians have these national promises that relate to a land that is their eternal possession, verse 3. And none of them have the national promise that they will be disciplined but not exterminated. Other
Yeah.
nations, as nations and nation states, will come to an end. This one is an eternal people, according to Isaiah and
Yeah.
Jeremiah.
And it's a restoration of an earthly monarchy.
An earthly
kingdom.
monarchy. That's a point we shouldn't forget. That's in verse 9, right? They shall serve the Yahweh their God and David their king. But where?
Whom I shall raise up for them.
Raise up, of course, in the Old Testament is a reference to resurrection.
Yeah.
So whether you take it as a reference to Christ being literally resurrected or King David being resurrected, which of course he expected, all Israel expected righteous Jews would be resurrected.
So when it talks about saving them from far away, that's real places, to the land of your captivity, real places of captivity and burden, to the land of your forefathers, well, that too is earthly,
Yeah.
real.
Among whom I scattered you, I will make a full end of all the nations among whom I scattered you, the ESV says, but of you I will not make a full end. So we could restate with emphasis that Jehovah's Witnesses just don't get what the Great Tribulation and Armageddon are about. That's very plain, even if you just had these 11 verses. So we know the answer now to why they didn't cite any verses after verse 3 here. So this is just a sample, but if you read all 4 of those chapters, Jeremiah 30 through 33, I think the game is over. And it's not just over for Jehovah's Witnesses, it's over for millions of Christians who are into replacement theology. And it's also over for unbelievers by the billions who think that none of these prophecies are even relevant to the future.
Yeah. Do we take words seriously? Or do we just try and get away from it by spiritualizing them?
By twisting Scripture to our own destruction. What's our link?
Our link is to a video we did about Jeremiah 31, Jehovah's everlasting love.
Which made a big difference to you, as I recall,
Yes.
30-odd years ago.
That's right.
Jehovah's everlasting love for Israel as a type, as a shadow of his relationship with all believers. See you next time.
Bye.